Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started soon, but we'll give folks a few moments to filter in. Thanks so much for being here. If you'd like to let us know where you're tuning in from, you can leave your location in the comments. Thanks, everybody, for coming. If you're just joining us, you haven't missed anything. We're just giving people a couple of seconds to come in. You can tell us where you are in the comments. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, home of the Penny Hoarder headquarters. My name is Molly Moorhead, and I'm a senior editor here at the Penny Hoarder. I'll be the moderator for today's Q&A on how to make money when jobs are scarce. This is an uncertain time. If you're struggling out there, know that you're not alone. We're here today to help equip you with information and resources you need to support yourselves and your families. So it looks like we've got people tuning in from New Jersey, Northern California, Zephyr Hills, Florida, right up the road, Deltona, Florida, Detroit, San Diego. This is great. Welcome to all of you. We're glad you're here. At the Penny Hoarder, our mission is simple: to empower people to make smart choices with their money. We do this by producing articles on how to make, save, and manage your money better. We also do live events, both in person and virtual, about financial empowerment. Today's Q&A is one of those events, and it's sponsored by Petco. Before we jump in, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what you can expect from this hour. I do have some prepared questions, but what I want to make sure is that we get questions that you ask answered. So please submit them in the comments. We're giving away 5 copies of the new book by Chris Guillebeau, one of our speakers. It's called The Money Tree, and for a chance to win, all you have to do is ask a question. Finally, we have a terrific daily email newsletter from the Penny Hoarder with all the latest information and stories. You can sign up for it via the link in the comments. Now, with that said, let's meet our guests. Chris Guillebeau is tuning in from Colorado. He's the author of several books on side gigs and earning money in non-traditional ways. He also hosts the podcast Side Hustle School. We also have Adam Hardy, my colleague here at the Penny Hoarder. He's also tuning in from St. Petersburg. He's a staff writer who covers the gig economy and ways to make money. Thanks, both of you, for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so let's start. Adam, first question. Say that I'm one of the 40 million Americans who has been laid off or furloughed as a result of this pandemic. How can I get some money coming in right now? Who's hiring?
So first, I just want to say thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in from all of those different places Molly mentioned. As she said, I'm a journalist at the Penny Hoarder, and I cover all the different ways to make money. So that's mostly the gig economy, but also work from home jobs, careers, and entrepreneurship. And believe it or not, there are a lot of opportunities to make money out there right now, if you know where to look. And today I'm really going to go over all of the different places who are hiring and kind of where to look. So in my recent reporting since the start of the pandemic, I've counted about 1 million new jobs since about mid-March. And those are all, that's not an exhaustive list by any means, but those are all basically mass hiring initiatives that I just counted up. And I saw a lot of recurring industries, a lot of recurring employers. So to go over a few, and as the event kind of goes on, I'll definitely dive more into them. But I've seen state governments right now are big employers, and they have a few kind of pandemic related jobs that are very popular. Third-party customer service companies. And for example, so there might be a company that specializes in doing customer service work for like a larger, maybe consumer brand like Nike. So you might be doing a job about Nike, but your employer might not be Nike. It might be one of these third-party customer service companies. And a lot of those opportunities are actually work from home. So a lot of these third-party customer service jobs you can do entirely remotely. And this next one I see a little bit obvious, but essential businesses right now, certain industries that are deemed essential are actually seeing a big boom. A few of those are like grocery companies, grocery delivery services, pretty much any delivery service right now, whether it's food or groceries or packages. And there are also a lot of side gigs that are usually app-based that are doing pretty decent right now. You can work from your smartphone device in some of these in-demand fields. And I know that's kind of a lot to throw at you all at once, but I really want to just say that the job opportunities are out there, but they might not be showing up in your typical like job search, like Indeed job feed. You might have to tailor your job search a little bit to find them.
All right, Chris, your niche is teaching people to come up with their own inventive ways to make money,
Mhm.
work in the coronavirus era. Are the possibilities limited right now, or are they just different?
Yeah, well, thank you as well. Thank you, Molly, for having me. Thanks, Penny Hoarder team. Great to be here with Adam. Hello to everybody from all over the country and the world watching. So, whenever there's a transition or disruption, like this is a massive disruption, obviously, but whenever there is change, there's always, disruption and chaos in some ways, and there's also progress in other ways. So just like Adam was saying, there are opportunities in the job market, but they might be a little different than they were before. So now I feel like, whenever people are questioning lots of stuff and the ways that things used to work aren't necessarily the way they're working now, there's all kinds of chances and possibilities to do stuff. So I think what you have to look at is, okay, first of all, you've got millions of Americans who are now working from home or working remotely who weren't doing so before. So this presents, tremendous opportunity. Lots of people are learning how to do that, adjusting to it. I saw a guy the other day who has become like a Zoom consultant. Somebody else is helping people like set up their like work from home offices. So you have all kinds of stuff like that. Then just like Adam mentioned about like essential businesses and things, you also have to ask, what are people looking for now? And I think one of the things they're looking for is community and connection. So a lot of virtual events, a lot of gatherings and such are doing well. Anything that fosters connection from people wherever they are, whether it's locally connecting online or connecting online with people all over the world and such. I heard of someone recently who started a virtual meditation community, and this is a paid opportunity. Like she's charging a membership price of I think $20 a month, so it's not like a super burdensome thing for people who are signing up. But she's got a lot of people. She's doing like $3,000 a month, with this project. So I think there are always possibilities and opportunities. The question is just like, what is relevant now? What do people need? And what's the need that you can meet? What's the problem that you can provide a solution to? And so I think it's, there's lots of negative effects, of course, from what's happening, but at the same time, a lot of stuff is outside of our control. So what I encourage people to do, myself included, is to ask what is within our control. What's the one thing that I could do, to better myself or to create more security so that the next time something unpredictable happens, I might be in a better place and I'm not dependent on another job or something, for my well-being.
That's great. Zoom consultant is probably not a job heard of 4 months ago.
Right, exactly.
So as promised, we're going to start taking some questions that you've submitted. So please keep putting them in the comments. A topic that's coming up a lot is work from home jobs. That's something we cover a lot here at the Penny Hoarder. And so I'm going to tell you, sorry, folks, I just got a phone call on the computer. Adam, here's a few questions and you can kind of answer them all at once. How can I find a legit work from home job right now? What are they and where are they? How easy is it to find a remote job? And I'll save this one, but we know that there's some kind of bad actors out there. And so we'll tell you also how to avoid those.
Yeah, so I'll kind of tackle those all at once. The first place I would recommend is the Penny Hoarder has their own work from home jobs portal, and I'm on a team along with several other journalists who find these work from home jobs and post them in there every single day. And you could find those at thepennyhoarder.com/WFH for work from home. And we've been doing this long before the pandemic, but I mean, it's more relevant ever before. And a lot of the new jobs I'm seeing were those third-party customer service companies that I mentioned up top. So you might be doing customer service for like a consumer brand. So say Chanel, it needs customer service for their e-commerce website. You might not be employed by Chanel. You might be employed by, let's say, I believe Sykes or VIP Kid or Working Solutions. These are these third-party companies that have thousands and in some cases even tens of thousands of jobs right now. And they're contracting with, like I said, consumer brands, sometimes state governments as well. And they're mainly going to be, customer service related right now. Tech support and troubleshooting is also quite popular. And in terms of, I think the last part of that question was about scams. Yeah, unfortunately, as work from home jobs are more in demand, there are, as you said, bad actors kind of trying to capitalize on it. Some common scams that the FTC has warned about that have been on the penny hoarders radar for a while are kind of unsolicited text messages and calls. So if you're getting some kind of text from a random number and it's like, hey, apply here, put your information in, put your social security number in, that will not be required for any legitimate employer upfront. You will not need to provide that information. Any legitimate employer will not ask for money from you. I know there are like check cashing scams where they'll say, oh, here's $1,000 to buy equipment for your home office, just send us back the remainder. That's an age-old check cashing scam. So anything you really just haven't already asked about, haven't signed up for, haven't already applied to, if you're randomly hearing from some person claiming to be that company, just be cautious, check maybe where the email's coming from. So if you sign up for something from the Penny Hoarder, it should be from, at thepennyhoarder.com and not like at Gmail or at Yahoo or something like that.
All right, good. Chris, we're also getting a lot of questions about people who want to do something on the side. Narissa asked, is there a way to earn on the side while working full time? I still have a job, thank God, but my husband had a pay cut and it's putting us in a bind. Another, Nick asked, how can you make money while still working in an essential job? We have somebody who's retired on Social Security, but that only covers rent. How can people make some money part-time, essentially?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's actually ideal. I mean, the time to start your side hustle is even when you have a day job, and like, if you are fortunate in that situation, like that person mentioned, it's not something that you have to spend a lot of money on. It's not something you have to spend a lot of time on. Like for 3 years now, I've been profiling, different people every day on this podcast, Side Hustle School, and all of them have day jobs. They all start with a skill they already have. And they don't go into debt to start their project, which is the whole model that I'm trying to share in different ways. So I think I think the first thing you do is like, what skill do I have? Like, what is the marketable skill that I could have that I might be able to create some kind of product or service around? And if that sounds like too heavy, then it's just, what is the thing that I know about? I know about something. There's something out there that I know about, like that woman who started the meditation community. There's this guy I profiled recently who is like a drone pilot, and he's doing drone photography now for real estate agents, actually doing really, really well with that. So there's something for everyone. I think sometimes even the stranger the idea or the thing that sounds weird or that just sounds really specialized or super niche, like that's actually the thing that can work a lot better than just, oh, I want to be an artist and sell, arts and crafts, or I want to be a life coach or a business strategist. That stuff is really generic. So the more specific you can be, the better. And there are lots of platforms. I see people in the comments mentioning like Shopify. Shopify is great. Somebody mentioned Etsy, I think. Like these are great tools that you can kind of jump on and experiment and play around with. And my number one suggestion would be don't worry about trying to have a huge plan for it. Like I think a lot of people hold back because like, oh, I don't know what the business plan is. I don't know what this is going to look like in 3 years. And it doesn't matter, like if you're trying to start something for the first time in particular, your goal is to, make a few $100s, in 30 days or something, let's say, and then maybe make $1,000 the next month. And, along the way, you're going to be learning. And these learning experiences are going to help you go on to the next thing, whatever it is. So whatever you can do to have a bias toward action, toward experimenting and actually trying stuff out, I think that's going to be a lot better than just kind of remaining stuck and doing lots of research and looking around.
Good. You touched there a moment on Etsy and Shopify. We had a question about how to safely sell antiques and collectibles. But of course, that could be anything. That could be art that you create,
Yep.
crafts, clothing. Uh, can one of you talk about where are the best places to sell online, and even how do you do it safely right now, both in terms of meeting with strangers if it's an in-person thing, or
Mhm.
if you're worried about contactless deliveries?
Yeah, well, I'll start and I'll, of course, toss to Adam after that. I would say, so all these platforms, if it's local now, they usually offer like a contactless option. Like even a couple months ago, I was seeing like Craigslist, Craigslist sales that are done, without actual interaction. Another local app that's popular is OfferUp. You've got Nextdoor, people communicating through that. Of course, the big ones like eBay and Etsy, other online auctions and stuff. And here's the thing about that, like everybody has within their house, like in your apartment, your dorm room, your house, wherever you live, everybody's got stuff they can sell, like just about everybody. I would suggest, like I heard the statistic that said the average American has $2,200 worth of stuff like in their closet or somewhere that they're not using. So this is not like your prized possessions. This is stuff that you don't really need. So it can actually be really good to start experimenting with some of these platforms by listing those things for sale. First of all, because you'll get $2,200 or whatever it is, but also it can lead you to something else. Like you might, start selling these things on eBay and then realize, oh, there's something else I can sell, or I can buy something from one of these other platforms and sell it on this one, which is really basic retail arbitrage. And that's what I mean, like 20 years ago, I started working for myself, and that's what I was doing then, basically. And a lot of things have changed since then, but that's one thing that has not changed. It's still exactly the same. You can buy stuff for one price, sell it for something else. You get better at it the more you do it. There's not a lot of risk involved. Like the worst case scenario is, okay, you'll sell it back for what you paid for it, or maybe you take a very small loss or something. So my encouragement is like start reselling something now on one of these platforms. And Adam's probably got some more to say about that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I'd like to make a distinction a little bit, just for the readers, that there are platforms that are more focused to part of what Chris was saying with like the things that may already be in your closet, and a lot of them are still operational. So Facebook Marketplace has not really changed much. A lot of that is up to the user. So if you want to sell some things on Facebook Marketplace, I would recommend that does very well with like used and secondhand stuff, but just make sure your like listing is well crafted and thought out. If you want to do some kind of contactless option, make sure to just be overly communicative right now. Set up some clear boundaries. Say like, I'll leave my dresser outside between this time and this time. You can pick it up, and we'll do some kind of virtual currency exchange or something like that. But there are also some other services where you can like sell your used things to like a company. So Declutter is one that is still operational, and they focus primarily on tech, I believe. But if you have like DVDs and video games or like a Blu-ray player, you can actually scan your barcode on this website, and then it'll give you a quote, and then you just like mail it in, and they pay you through direct deposit, and there's literally no real human interaction involved. On the more entrepreneurial side, we were talking about Etsy and Shopify. Those are kind of catered toward kind of crafty, home goodsy, artistic markets. And those are probably, like I said, kind of more on the entrepreneurial side. You might want to have like a product or something that you've made yourself to put on there as opposed to used goods. But yes, there are definitely all of those platforms we mentioned are operational and are doing very well right now.
Chris, Deanna has a question for you.
Yeah.
What recommendation do you have when you have a lot of interests and ideas for side hustles? How do you decide which one to go for first?
That's a great question. Thank you, Deanna. So the way that I think it's good to handle that is to first of all ask what your goal is. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Because if your goal is, okay, I want to like replicate my day job income and like quit my job, or maybe I'm unemployed right now, I need to do something really quickly. Versus I'm trying to just make some extra money. I would love to, make some extra money to pay off debt or put in a retirement fund or whatever it is, or if it's like a creative project. So what is your motivation right now? Like what is most important to you? And then if you've got a bunch of different ideas, so you can then, list out your ideas and be like, okay, based on my goals, does one of them jump out? Based on what is like the most feasible, Does one of them jump out? If you've got an idea to like, well, I want to compete with SpaceX and like do the next rocket launch, that's not a very feasible idea, like in the next 30 days versus, oh, like I'm going to, sell some stuff from my apartment, or it could be any number of other things. So you could also do it by feasibility. You could do it by profit potential. If you're like, what do I think is going to make the most money, or at least has the potential, to make the most money. So just by looking at these variables, it can often help you to remove some of those ideas. If you've got 5 or 6 ideas, or maybe not get it down to 2 or 3 or something. And then my last suggestion is, like, once you get it down to 2 or 3, if you really, really can't decide, then I really think you should just kind of pick something, even if it seems arbitrary, because as I said, like if you remain stuck and you don't ever decide, you're going to be worse off than if you're like, okay, I'm going to go with this one and I'm going to try it for 3 weeks or something. And if it doesn't work, then I'll change to the other one. But that experience is going to help you, first of all, make better decisions going forward, have more confidence. But also it's just like everything you do is going to be like building blocks. So it's not a bad thing to have a lot of ideas. But I think at a certain point, you just have to make some choices.
All right, Adam, Noel asked, I'm in the middle of a career shift. Are there things I should spend time and money on right now to make me more hireable?
I would say if you're comfortable with doing that, learning new skills is always a good investment in yourself. But that's really going to be a personal decision. If you are comfortable with spending a little money, it certainly wouldn't hurt if the skill is in demand, and if it can be applied to kind of the new economy right now and make you a more desirable candidate. That certainly wouldn't hurt. I would just caution against spending too much time or money instead of getting some money coming in right now.
All right, great. Before I forget, you touched on this at the top of the hour, and I want to make sure we don't skip over it. Who are some companies that are hiring right now? Like literally, what website can I go to and find they have openings and I can get a job and start it soon?
Yeah, so I mentioned a lot of big like industries. So I can kind of break down some of those industries and where to find some actual jobs to apply to, literally. So what I'm seeing I know work from home is really popular, so I'll start there. So what I'm seeing from work from home companies are those third-party customer service companies, and I'll throw out a lot of names right now, so bear with me. So T-Tech is one that is constantly hiring, and their jobs are always in the Penny Hoarders job portal, and that's TTEC. VIP Desk is one. Working Solutions, Sykes, SYKES. These are all essentially they do the same exact thing. All of these companies, they partner with state governments, they partner with consumer brands, they partner with all kinds of different places, and then just kind of aggregate all of those customer service jobs. So one job might be working for Chanel, and one job might be working for like the state of Wisconsin. And I'll actually talk about some of these state government jobs. So 2 big ones I'm seeing, some of them they're outsourcing, and some state governments are listing them themselves on their own state government website, are really related to the pandemic. One is contact tracing. And these are jobs that pay up to $30 an hour. They're in high demand right now. And essentially the thought process behind these type of jobs is to track where and when the coronavirus has been spreading. And that takes a lot of manpower to do so. Some states are hiring thousands, some are tens of thousands right now. California is the biggest one. Unfortunately, if you're tuning in from Florida, last I heard, we have 0 plans to hire. So right now it's really state by state. But instead of wasting your time kind of going through even your state website or your state, or even county level are hiring some, there are some companies that are kind of aggregating them nationally. One place that does that is governmentjobs.com. They have partnered with several states, so you could go to governmentjobs.com, type in contact tracer, in probably 10 or 15 states will pop up. Another place that is offering them nationally is contrace.com. It's an organization that just popped up literally to find and vet contact tracers, and that's CONTRACE.com. both of those places are again, really high demand. They're going to focus on the contact tracing. And the flip side of the unemployment scenario with all of these, 40 million unemployment claims coming in, as we said at the top, there's actually a lot of need for people to process those claims. And again, that's another state government job. They're hiring unemployment insurance agents through one of those third-party companies that I mentioned, like the Working Solutions places or the Sykeses. But also they could also be listed on your state's government website as well.
All right, Chris, this is an interesting one back on the entrepreneurial side. How does one market toward an opportunity brought on by COVID without appearing to be insensitive, taking advantage of the crisis?
Sure. Yeah, I think it depends on the opportunity. It's like what is it that you are offering? Like if you're offering hand sanitizer, then like you don't want to price gouge, right? I think that's kind of the mindset where that question comes from. But I mean, people have all kinds of needs right now. If you have the ability to meet someone's need, if you have the ability to be helpful in some way, then it's not really taking advantage of someone. So, not to keep referring to that same example, but I thought about that virtual meditation community, which was founded like during COVID. The whole point is she has a really low price point to it. So a low price point is good. Making it accessible. Is there some way that you can offer a version of your service or product for free, and then there's still a component that people can pay for? I think that's also good, like a kind of a freemium model. Or anything where, if it's something that does have a higher cost and there's no way to like avoid that, is there some way that there can be like a scholarship option where people who have the ability to like, sponsor someone or pay for someone else to be there? So these things are really just about tone and being sensitive and having empathy. But people still have all kinds of needs, and we're all still spending money in various ways. Like we're conscious of it and we're aware of it and such. But there will always be needs. So there's an appropriate way to market your service, I think, even during this time.
Adam, you recently wrote about an app that started before the pandemic, but they've expanded. It's called Papa.
Yeah.
Really interesting premise. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Papa is a Florida-based company. It was started in 2016, so it's quite a small startup. But recently, their service has become just all the more relevant during COVID. They have basically tried to tackle loneliness and isolation epidemic. And again, this was back in 2016 with elderly community. So they would partner with like a young kind of energetic college student to begin with, and they would match them through an app or through a telephone call with an elderly person who needs help. They could need like help with technology. They could need help with just grabbing some errands or doing some errands. Or they could just literally be like, hey, let's sit down and play a board game. Obviously, the board game side of the equation is kind of out right now during COVID, but as you could imagine, the loneliness and the isolation effects are really, really taking off right now. And so this company has kind of expanded rapidly. I just talked to the CEO last week, and they waived all of the location requirements. So they were operating, when I talked to them last year, I think in a handful, maybe a dozen states, and now it's all states virtually. They have some key states where you can sign up and do in-person, like deliveries and contactless deliveries. But right now you could go to joinpapa.com and sign up for just like the virtual services. It could be tech troubleshooting is still very popular right now, or it could just be a phone call, checking in on how they're doing. Again, it might start with a phone call, and that could ease them into, maybe a virtual conference or like a FaceTime, and you kind of just build rapport with them. And it starts all from the phone. They're in high demand, as the CEO just told me. You can see all the requirements, but I know they waived actually the education requirement, so there's no more bachelor's degree. It's not just college students. And again, they waived the location requirement. So those are great side gig opportunities right now. It's really impactful, I think, meaningful work for a lot of people. And you can help those who are kind of self-isolating still, especially a high-risk population during the pandemic.
That's great.
Chris, here's one I think you'll like. James asked, does a side hustle always have to graduate to full-time employment? Or is reasonable to plan for it to remain part-time in perpetuity?
The great thing about a side hustle is it can be anything that you want it to be. And I've had a lot of stories from people who have turned their side hustle into the full-time gig. And I've had a lot of stories from people who have grown a pretty significant small business. So it's not just like a few $100s a month. I've had stories of people that have actually replicated a full-time income and more, a lot of multiple six-figure projects even. But they choose, to remain at their day job, for whatever reason, because they like their company, they like working with other people in that kind of group, they like that social setting, or they like being part of, like a bigger mission or something that you couldn't just accomplish on your own. So, the good thing about the side hustle, the second income, whatever it is it just brings you more options. It brings you more options to do what is important to you. So it's not that there is one path to it. It's okay, if you had financial security, what would you do? That old question of like, if time or money were no object, what would you do? Well, if you have, a job that you like, you might continue with it. You might get a different job. You might do some kind of hybrid model. A lot of people end up doing that. It's like they're working for a time and they're more focused on their business or their side hustle, and then maybe they kind of go back and forth or something. So it's really about your own situation, what kind of options do you want to create for yourself. And that's why I am such an evangelist for this model. It's not that everybody should be a quote unquote entrepreneur, but I do think everybody needs more than one source of income, and this is the best way to do it, rather than trying to get a second job or a third job. Like, people are already like overworked and busy and stressed. And so the ideal side hustle is something that actually makes money for you. It's actually like, okay, I've invested a lot of time, or a fair amount of time, let's say, in the front end, but then in the long term, it's actually going to like be the kind of thing where I can go to bed, I wake up in the morning, and then there's like a PayPal notification or a Shopify notification from somebody who has, given me money and purchased my product or service online. And that's really a wonderful thing. Like, there's no downside to that, right? It's really a wonderful thing, especially if you've never experienced it before. So that's why I think there's something everybody can and should do.
And following up on that, Daniela asked, how can I know that I'm charging correctly for my services?
Mm-hmm.
Ever thought of yourself as an employer before, or even a business owner? How do you know?
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, so there's a lot that you could say about that, but just to kind of keep it brief, I would say when you're doing it for the first time, first of all, think about what you make for your day job, and if you're paid a salary, just kind of approximate the hourly rate. And whatever you end up doing, it should be no less than that. Ideally, it should be significantly more. But you want to make sure you're at least making what you can make, for your day job. And then after that, it's kind of a process of like, how do I find the right balance between like, what is the maximum I can charge where people are still comfortable paying, what is that? So you can look at what competitors are doing. You could do some experiments. You could do like a limited time offer. Okay, it's going to be this price for a time, or for the first X number of customers, and then I'm going to increase it. And you can also play with it as you go along. It's also okay to charge different prices to different people, which sometimes people think, well, that's weird, like that seems like it's wrong or something. But keep in mind, whenever you buy a plane ticket or lots of other expenses that we all purchase all the time, people are paying different prices for those things. So it's not unusual to kind of find your way with pricing as you go along. You don't have to have everything sorted out in the beginning.
Good. Adam, what are some ways to make quick money? Maybe I just don't know how I'm going to pay rent next month. How can I make some money real fast?
Yeah, so at the top, I mentioned some of side gig apps right now. In some in-demand industries are hiring and onboarding people very, very quickly because the services are just so in demand right now. One I think is definitely worth noting is pretty much delivery apps. There are several different ones. You can sign up, and I've heard even within 48 hours or less, start making money with them. I've talked to some gig workers recently who were actually out of work Uber drivers. So they've kind of had some experience with these side gig apps, and then all of their fares dried up, and one switched over to Instacart, which is a grocery delivery service, and was actually, I believe he said 24 hours later, approved, and he was out making money. In his market, he said that was the most money he's ever made with any app. He called it magical money to me. I know that might not be the same case for everybody. It is market and location dependent, but Instacart is seeing and hiring huge numbers of new delivery people. Amazon Flex is Amazon's package delivery service. Again, through your smartphone, you can, I believe actually Amazon Flex is the only gig app that guarantees a minimum wage, and it's $15 an hour, which again, the jobs and the shifts aren't guaranteed, but if you do get a shift, they will guarantee an hourly rate. DoorDash is another big one. Postmates, Shipt is another grocery delivery service. So all of those right now are very, very high in demand. They all are actually seeing a lot of influx too. So there's actually quite a bit of competition with all of those people signing up. So again, that income isn't always going to be guaranteed. If you're tuning in from like maybe Hagerstown, Maryland right now, and you're listening and 20 people sign up, you might be fighting over the same order. So that goes without saying. It again is quick, but not always guaranteed. Some other methods, plus relying on apps that I kind of racked my brain recently trying to answer that question right when the pandemic unfolded. And I wrote an article, and the premise of that one was basically like, what if I take unpaid sick leave? So how could I roughly estimate the income from taking a day off? And some of the platforms, or one of the platforms that is very, very quick is Amazon Mechanical Turk. And that's more like freelancing than it is actually like some side gig app. So it's like a website that just lists all kinds of really, really, really tiny tasks. So somebody might have a job like, hey, I'm not good at Excel. I need somebody to look over this list, maybe categorize it, and I'll give you $5. And okay, $5 doesn't sound like much, but if you're good with Excel, that could take you 10 minutes, and then you just earn $5 and you do another little micro task. And we have some content on ourselves or on our website where people are very, very good at this, and they make $15, $20 an hour. And you can sign up on that and make money almost immediately. No real work history is involved. I would say survey sites aren't super lucrative, but it is some money quickly. You can sign up for like inbox dollars and swag bucks, and just like look at an ad and answer questions about it and get, maybe $5 here, a gift card there. Again, those are kind of immediate, the quickest ways literally to make money. The final one that I will mention that is actually quite lucrative, it's not for everybody, but it is video game tournaments. It's not the huge esports ones you might see on the news, but if you're good at video games, there are websites. I'll say MLG, Game Battles, Players Lounge, Gamer Saloon. They all have amateur tournaments, and you can sign up, today even. Maybe join for free, join for a couple dollars, and they have payouts of up to like $500. So, people take what or say what you will about video games, but they can be lucrative if you're good at them. Some states I know don't actually allow, I think they're called cash prize tournaments. They categorize video game tournaments as those, so they ban them. But the vast majority of states, you can actually sign up if you're good at video games and make quick, fast, and it can be pretty lucrative money.
That was my dream like 20 years ago, to get paid for playing video games. And can I just jump in real quick, Molly, and add something
Please,
to
yeah.
what Adam was saying? I think, it's good to experiment. And yeah, if you need the quick cash, then I totally understand, driving for Instacart or DoorDash or Amazon, all those kinds of platforms. But as Adam highlighted, like there's a lot of competition, right? There's a ton of people signing up for these right now. And for the most part, they're really not, well-paying jobs or gigs or whatever you want to call them. Like most of them aren't paying that well. So the thing to do, I think, is whether you experiment or not, the thing to do is to think like bigger picture. What are all these people who are signing up for these platforms? What do they need? Right? There's all these people that are driving for these DoorDash, Instacart, et cetera, for the first time. And there's whole communities of them. How can you serve those people? And so like, for example, my sister was actually doing Amazon, warehouse deliveries for a while. And she was saying they have all this different software and systems and like guides on how to like get the best shift, because you're competing with other people. So somebody made that resource. I was in an Uber or a Lyft the other day for the first time in like 3 weeks, which was weird because I used to take Uber and Lyft every day. And I talked to the driver, and he was saying, we were talking about just travel and such, and he was like, "Oh, it's picking up at the airport. I can see that there's 148 people, arriving in the next 5 minutes or something at the airport." And I was like, "Oh, how do you see that? Is that an app from the airport?" And he's like, "No, it's another app that rideshare drivers are using because it helps them maximize their revenue and such." And I was like, "That's interesting. That's something somebody has created to serve this group of people that are all doing gig work." So what I think you should think about is not just what can I do today or tomorrow, but how can I actually create something that has the potential to go beyond earning $10 to $15 an hour, but actually help me like really get ahead, get out of debt, and create financial security.
That's interesting. So you can kind of use these gig apps that maybe you don't want to work for them forever, but it can kind of hone who your customer base could be.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You think about a need, you think about a need or a problem. Maybe just one quick example as well. Harry Campbell is a friend of mine. He started this project, the Rideshare Guy, and it's all about like a blog and consulting and coaching for rideshare drivers. It's a podcast. It's like a multimedia platform now. And, he was a Boeing engineer actually, and just started driving for Uber and Lyft kind of for fun and like to make these incentives a few years ago, and realized there was this whole population of people who weren't being served. And so now this is a business that's actually doing very, very well. So it's always like, not just what's the opportunity here, but when people are gravitating toward an opportunity, what do those people need?
Really good advice. We've had a few questions from some older folks. A few people have said that they're on Social Security and they need to supplement it. They maybe have quite a bit of experience and they find something else to do. Do you all have some specific advice for older workers?
I love hearing from people who are in like doing like a second act or a third act, or like, I want to start something in this situation. Sometimes they write to me and they're like, "I'm probably the only one you've heard from in this situation." I'm like, "No, there's a lot of people who are doing it." And it's just like you said, Molly, about like they have this wisdom, they have experience. And sometimes they might feel intimidated about some other aspect of it, like, "Oh, I have this, I know a lot, but I don't know how to apply it in this kind of economy or with this certain technology or whatever." But I would encourage them to focus on that first part about the wisdom or the experience and say, "Okay, what is this thing that I have learned? What are some of the things I have learned throughout not just my career, but my life in general?" So I'll give you one example. There's a woman who is really into Girl Scouts or Girl Guides, depending on where you're watching from. And like she was a scout, and then she was a troop leader for a number of years as an adult. And then when she had her son, she was less involved in the Girl Scouts. So she started creating a bunch of resources, like different guides for the Girl Scouts about how to plan activities and exercises and incorporate curriculum and all these different things. So she ended up creating a website where all these resources, some of which are free and some of which are available for sale at a pretty low cost. I mean, it's like $3 to $5 each, $7 and such, and has built that business to $2,000 to $4,000 a month or so, like depending on the month and the season and such. So there is something that everybody's good at, and again, it goes back to like, what are the things I have learned about in my life that people ask me about, that I'm an authority in. Maybe it was connected to my day job or my career, my vocation, let's say profession, or maybe it was something more like playing the video games or being the Girl Scout leader, or noticing something about some problem that I actually have the ability to solve. So if you're doing that second act or third act, good for you.
And I'll add, just on the flip side of Social Security benefits, if speaking to the disability benefits side of the equation, before you take on new work, it's always, because you have to report your income very frequently, it's always a good thing to keep in mind to record this thing and talk to your Social Security rep if you are receiving either SSI or SSDI. So this doesn't necessarily pertain to people who have retired, but people who are receiving disability insurance. There are some federal programs that I can just name a couple of resources if you do want to pick up more work and you are on disability benefits. The Ticket to Work program is the Social Security Administration's own program to help people work, and they partner with a lot of employment opportunity websites. And basically, the Social Security Administration is paying those resources, so they're absolutely free to you. And I know work from home work is quite popular in that community. One resources that really specializes in work from home opportunities, I could say, is My Employment Options. I've talked to them frequently, and they partner with people who are receiving benefits. They know the ins and outs of the SSA, and they will make sure you're going by the book when you're picking up new work while receiving disability benefits.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of questions about if I'm on disability, what work can I do?
Mhm.
Putting aside that reporting your income concern, which people do need to be cautious about, what are some gigs they could look at doing? Maybe some work from home stuff.
Yeah, so I would recommend again that My Employment Options is a great website and resource that will, they have really good relationships with employers who hire people with various disabilities. And again, these opportunities are really going to be dependent on what type of disability it is. But I've talked to, for that Social Security benefits article, I talked to one gig worker who loves Amazon Flex actually. And that was his favorite thing to do. And his disability allowed him to do that. And he was able to make money with that one. Not everyone is going to be able to do that type of physical manual work. So I would say look into some work from home jobs and look into employers who are vetted or in partnerships with the Ticket to Work program, because they know the regulations. They'll be able to work with you depending on your disability to find something that works from home. You know, maybe you can't sit down very long and you can't really do computer work. There are opportunities where it's pretty much only phone work, and a couple ones off the top of my head that I know are just from like smartphones or telephones. We mentioned Pop App, so that's completely, you don't need a computer at all. You can call and find work just straight from your landline or smartphone. Sutherland is one. Then they do like social media ad rating. I'm trying to think, what is the one that it's escaping my mind? We post them all the time in our work from home portals. There are some jobs where you're going just straight from your smartphone and you're answering questions that helps people, you know, that say, is this ad relevant? Is this ad, you know, XYZ? And that's, again, it all depends on your personal case, but there's a lot of different employment opportunities out there. And again, I'll throw up the name. That was My Employment Options is one that specializes in work from home jobs for people with disabilities.
Great. Chris, how can people identify their marketable skills even if they don't have any?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. I think somebody brought it up in the chat. I wanted to say hi to Leah and Alexis as well in the chat. Good to see you guys here. How can you identify your marketable skills? So I sometimes meet people who are like, this sounds really cool, but like, I don't know what I would possibly do, or it's great that these other people have been able to do these projects, but I don't have these skills of my own. Usually in like a 2-minute conversation, we can figure out what these marketable skills are. So we touched on it a bit, but just to kind of like narrow it down, I would say, first of all, go and make a list, you know, pen and paper list of, you know, everything that you know something about. Okay. And you think this is really broad, everything that you think you're an expert in, or that you have focused on, or that people come and ask you about. That's a good thing. It's like, what questions do people ask you about all the time? If they're asking you the same kinds of questions over and over, it shows that they see you as an authority. It's also something that they're interested in, so therefore it's valuable. If you you work the kind of job where you have colleagues in an office, either virtually or in person, you know, and meetings are held and tasks are kind of handed out. You know, what tasks do they assign you with when the group is talking about stuff? And like, oh, Molly should do this because she's really good at this thing. It's like the group is identifying this thing. I would also encourage you to ask your friends and just say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. I don't know what my marketable skills are. Often they will say, you know what, you've always been into Girl Scouts, and you've been able to help a lot of people just informally. I wonder if there could be something to that. So just beginning to explore that process. And then the second part is, okay, I've got some ideas now. I've got some topics at least. How do I go from that, you know, from idea to income essentially? And that is essentially about converting your knowledge into the form of an offer, into the form of like, okay, this is the product that is for sale, this is the service, here is how people access it, et cetera. So these are just some really basic practical steps. Like I've written a lot about them in my books and such, but it's not that complicated. I think the most important thing is to focus on that knowledge, that content, that expertise, and everybody does have it somewhere. So it's just a matter of figuring out how to unpack it, like unwrap it, and like, transform or adapt it in a different way.
All right, really good advice. Adam, a couple people have asked, what are some side gigs they can do that are not 9 to 5 or that are not maybe even tied to any specific hours?
Yeah, so a lot of the apps that we've talked about today are build your own schedule. Papa, for instance, is very flexible. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all of these ones are to just get immediate money coming in are really, really flexible with time. The only one I would say that does have anything related to like kind of a schedule you have to sign up for, I know, is Amazon Flex, and they kind of have like block shifts. So the most time commitment there upfront, I believe you have to like sign up for like 4 hours at a time. And I think other than Amazon Flex, all of the ones that we've talked about, completely up to you when and where you want to sign in and start working. And then, of course, on the more entrepreneurial side, all of these side gigs are really just dependent on how much time and energy you want to put into them. Making an Etsy or an online store really is all up to you and when you have the energy to put into it. Again, those aren't really traditional employment, and the money might come in, later down the road. It might be like lucrative in a month or two. But those again are all up to you. And in terms of getting quick money, and all of those gig apps that we talked about today are completely time flexible. Yeah.
All right, Chris, you have a new book out.
I do.
This is a fictional work about a guy who's down on his luck and he's looking for ways to earn money. The book discusses the concept of the third way, based on the idea that the two most common models of starting a business don't work for most people. So the third way is all about starting quickly and avoiding debt. Can you tell us more about that and how it applies for our audience?
Yes, and thank you for asking, and thanks again, everybody, for watching. It's been a wonderful conversation. So the new book subtitle is a story about finding the fortune in your own backyard. It relates very much to some of the things that I've been discussing in terms of like, how do you find your marketable skills? What is the product or service you could create? How can you do something to not just, make a small amount of money today, but hopefully be able to have money coming in, over the long term to do what's important to you. So in short, the book is the story of this guy named Jake who is experiencing a lot of financial pressure. For him, he has a lot of student loan debt, like I know a lot of folks do. And this debt is affecting his whole life, his relationship, his day job, everything, because these things kind of come in waves. And he's just trying to figure out, what is it that I can do? Like so many people who are watching and commenting are saying. And he realizes he can't just work harder, and he can't just, join the gig economy, because it's not ultimately going to help him. And so he goes on this exploration of trying to figure out, what is my marketable skill, and how can I, he starts by reselling his college textbooks, and that teaches him some stuff. And then he goes on to start a service and other things. So my hope is that this book is for anybody who needs financial security, but might not necessarily read a business book or a how-to book. So my goal is for it to be just an engaging story that people can enjoy. Say, oh, I like that book, but hopefully I also felt challenged, and educated or informed in a way that kind of helps me to find my next step. So that's my hope with it.
All right, and we're going to be giving away 5 copies in just a couple of minutes if you stick around. We're coming to the end of the hour, so I want to thank everybody for your questions, and I'm just going to ask Chris and Adam one more thing. And that is, what is your best advice for people trying to make a go of it right now? Chris, go first.
I was going to say Adam should go first. I feel like I've been talking a lot here. The best advice for people who are trying to make a go of it right now. Okay, so So one thing big picture and one thing practical. So the big picture thing is I want you to believe in yourself, because this time is just a weird time for everybody, and everybody is feeling like anxious and worried and uncertain, and we're all like, the norms are changing all the time, and like everybody feels that way. So just understand, like, this is something that the whole planet is going through in different ways. Everybody's impacted differently, but it's a weird time. So I want you to believe in yourself and use this time to be able to look back later and say, okay, that time was crazy. That whole 2020, I could write that year off in lots of ways, except for the fact that I used it to actually start this project that maybe I thought about for a long time, but never actually took action on, or maybe it actually gave me an idea and it ended up changing my life for the better. So that's my encouragement. And then just practically, I would say, okay, let's break it down. What can you do in the next week, to make $100? Like, I really believe that everybody who's watching, like, if you haven't taken these steps before, there is something you can do. You can do something that Adam suggested, one of his recommendations. You can resell your college textbook or whatever you have in your closet on one of these different platforms we've talked about. You can offer a simple service. Like, there is something you can do. So I hope that you'll do that, and feel free to let me know what happens.
All right, Adam, your best advice.
Yeah, a lot of my advice will also kind of complement what Chris has talked about. I would just say take stock of your skills and see how they're going to apply and be relevant to the in-demand industries that we talked about happening right now. I've talked a lot about gig apps and platforms and things like that, and those aren't the end game. I'd like you to think of those as kind of just like a stepping stone to get some quick money coming in, and then from that point, that'll give you a little bit of breathing room to pivot to something that makes more sense in the long term. Right now, I don't think is the best time to really worry about, like, how is my job during the pandemic going to look on my resume? As Chris mentioned, I think now is the time to experiment. Try to get some money coming in so you have some breathing room, like I said. And then once you're there, you can set up maybe a long-term either career aspirational goal or side business aspirational goal and work from there.
Good. And lastly, Adam, where can people find you if they have more questions or they want to follow your work?
Yeah, so I know I threw a lot of names and companies out there today. I post on my Twitter a lot with a lot of interesting job opportunities and side hustles. My handle is Hardy Journalism, so HARDY Journalism, and all of my articles and work are available on thepennyhoarder.com.
And Chris, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Awesome. Thank you. The podcast is called Side Hustle School. You can listen wherever you listen to podcasts or at sidehustleschool.com. And I'm Chris Guillebeau. So that's Chris Guillebeau on most social media. And nobody can spell that, but it's just GUILLEBEAU. I know, so simple. And the new book is called The Money Tree. You can go to moneytreebook.com.
All right. Thank you both so much for speaking with us and for your great insights. I'd like to announce the winners for our book giveaway now. They are Shauna Kibble, James Percarato, Scott Slagle, Deanna Sleva, and Stephanie Purple. Congratulations. Thanks so much for asking questions. Thanks all of you for asking questions. Those of you who are winners, you can look for a private message from the Penny Hoarder and we'll make sure you get your book. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this hour. I've had a great time. Thank you, Adam and Chris, once again for speaking with us. Finally, thank you to our sponsor, Petco. To keep up to date with the latest in personal finance, visit thepennyhoarder.com and subscribe to our newsletter. We have links to both in the comments. Thanks again. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Molly.